Hey everyone out there in Blogland, sorry for the delay on Bark Like a Blog number 3. So first of all, I'm back in Vegas. Viva Las Vegas! And you know how that makes me feel.
I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control, and I think I like it.
Holy shit, that took a lot out of me. I gotta catch my breath. I gotta work out more. Now, I'd first of all like to thank all the fairs. Appreciate you booking my act and giving me the opportunity to wow your audiences. So thank you to all the fairs that booked me throughout 2011. That's fairs including in Canada and the United States. Had a great time, had a great year, so thank you once again. People ask me all the time, how often are you home? I mean, you're always on the road, and it's true. I'm always on the road. I do get home sporadically, 3 or 4 days or maybe a week at a time, but then I'm back on the road again. And I thought I'd give you a better idea how much traveling I actually do. Here it is, pretty much in a nutshell, what my 2011 tour was like. First, I flew from Vegas to West Palm Beach, Florida for the 17-day South Florida Fair, then flew to Winnipeg, Canada for some private functions, then went back home to Vegas for 3 days, then flew to Sacramento, rented a car, and drove to Redding, California, and performed at the Wind River Casino. Happy Valentine's! Drove back down to Sacramento and flew back home to Vegas. Then hopped in my car and headed down south to perform at the La Paz County Fair in Parker, Arizona. Then up to Vegas to catch a flight to Minnesota for a corporate performance. I rented a car and drove to Wilmar, North Dakota, did the corporate there. I also picked up a university performance in St. Joseph, Minnesota. Flew back to Vegas and drove down to Yuma County Fair, and I gigged there for a while and went back up to Vegas to make Clark County Fair in Logandale, Nevada. There I headed back down south to Tucson, Arizona for the Pima County Fair. After that, I was California bound. My next stop, Los Baños, which means, in Spanish, the toilet. Weird. And I performed at the Merced County Spring Fair. After that fair was done, I left my car in Sacramento, then traveled all the way up to Canada for a wedding, and flew to St. Lucia for a little... Actually, it was more like... Everybody! Flew back to Vegas, repacked, and flew back to Sacramento to pick up my car to do the Sacramento County Fair.
Showtime!
Then I headed up north to Portland, Oregon for all-night grad parties. 18 performances later, I flew up to Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada, rented a car, and drove back down to the United States to Williston, North Dakota for the Upper Missouri Valley Fair. Then back up to Regina, and I did a Canadian grad. Flew south to Salt Lake City, rented a car, drove north to Driggs, Idaho, and did the Celebration America hosted by the Huntsman Group. I drove back to Salt Lake City, caught a flight to Portland, Oregon, and I took my car all the way to Casper, Wyoming. Performed there for a week at the Central Wyoming Fair and Rodeo. Yeehaw! Then drove to Salt Lake City, caught a flight to Chicago, rented a car, drove to Valparaiso, Indiana, and gigged at the Porter County Fair. Drove back to Chicago, and flew back to Salt Lake City. Got back in my car, drove to Big Piney, Wyoming, and rocked the Sublette County Fair for that week. Then I headed west to the Lincoln County Fair in Afton, Wyoming. After that was done, I drove to Boise, Idaho. I caught a flight to Saskatoon and mesmerized the audience of the Saskatoon X. Flew back down to Boise, performed at the Western Idaho Fair for an amazingly hot 10 days. Oh, I also got in a car wreck. It wasn't my fault. Flew back to Vegas for 3 days while my car got repaired. Once repaired, I flew back to Boise, picked up my car, drove to Reno, visited some friends, carried on to the Gold Country Fair in Auburn, California for 5 days, then drove to Sacramento yet once again. Flew to Knoxville, which leads us to the last performance on the tour, the Tennessee Valley Fair. Now, the fair was great, and the weather was great, considering few days prior to the fair, it was actually flooded out. They actually couldn't even open the fair because there was so much water. You needed scuba gear to go on the tilt-a-whirl. You know what's really funny about being on the road and doing these shows? That anything can happen. So I'm on my way to my shows at the Tennessee Valley Fair. The stage was occupied by a bunch of arm wrestling maniacs. That's right, it was the 2011 Arm Wrestling Championship competition right there on my stage at the Tennessee Valley Fair. Go figure. So people are pretty serious about this stuff, and it draws in a pretty decent crowd, and they even wear their own colors. Check that out. Here are these two guys going completely at it, hardcore, and the next thing you know, yeah, fire trucks, ambulances, the guy snapped his freaking arm. And ironically, this was the car he was driving. That's right, anything can happen, but I do want to give a big shout out to my buddy Tim Triplett. He's a hypnotist, and he covered the first 3 days of the Tennessee Valley Fair, so thank you, Tim. What's it like eating on the road? Well, I mean, it's tough. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. When it's late at night, it's not very good. Your choices are pretty limited. And Tim and I went out one night, we had a few cocktails, and Afterwards, we were looking for food, and this was all we could find. I call this next piece Tim versus the vending machine. What's the number?
B7, right? You do the 7, you do the 5, and then what's happening is the whole thing there starts. Come on, brother! Come on! Taste the white cheddar. Come on down. They're going, man, they're going to the pit. Come on. Oh, yes! Oh.
White cheddar, popcorn chip. We're gonna have a big feast tonight. I'm so excited I can't even see straight. I can get you anything.
That's the end of the 2011 Tyzen Hypnosis That Rocks Bark Like a Blog tour. We're going to be posting a video, though, every week giving you updates of what's going on and perhaps maybe some stuff that's going on around in the Vegas area. That would be fun, right? Maybe. Oh, yeah, one more thing. I caught my flight back from Knoxville, Sacramento, picked up my car, drove back to Las Vegas, and I'm home! Yeah!
Evil!